Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Matty B. And we're down into the slow period of the offseason, even worse than I think last week. I know down here, hockey's big. The Hurricanes have been on a roll, eliminated Philadelphia once again. They're not going to win the cup. It was a sweep. Canes are on an 8-0 roll, and this is where they usually choke in the Eastern Conference Finals, or at least right before every year. So I'm not holding my breath to see them advance. We'll wait and see. It looks like they're on a roll, like they might be the team. I know Colorado's been putting up a ton of points. I don't even know what their bracket is, but I haven't watched too much. And basketball, man, I can't even watch the NBA. And the crazy thing is, and I've seen this from a couple people I've been asking around, people that I know listen to the show, right? I've been seeing weird, like if you go to ESPN, sometimes like they have like the banner for like, hey, what's the sport? Like what's the top sport that everyone's talking about? They've been having some like WNBA preseason games. I don't know in any world how WNBA preseason should be on the front page before NHL playoffs or NBA playoffs. I don't care what teams are playing. In no world should a preseason game from any league be the top story on ESPN. Have you been seeing that?
I'm not surprised, but
I'm going to bring it up right now live. We'll see what's up here. Well, the Avalanche are up right now. They're up 2-1 in that series since I brought it up. Oh, Lane Kiffin talking about diversity at LSU. Classic pure sports thing, right? Nothing about the WNBA today, which is shocking because I've been seeing a lot of Caitlin Clark thing. The WNBA is down. It is on the front page, but it's on the sidebar below the top headlines. And it says, inside the meetings that shape the league's future, WNBA, CBA, which they're losing money. So what are they bargaining with? Like, I really don't get it. I don't understand it. And the NBA isn't even doing that hot. So and the other thing, too, that I've been hearing a lot of people talk about is how dominant the Thunder are. And I think I brought this up like a couple weeks ago because I haven't been watching that much and everyone's complaining. This really came up, too, because it looks like a lot of mocks have Yaxel going to the Thunder, which just won the national championship in Michigan, right? Probably, I know he's older, but he's like one of the top, like pure developed guys already ready for the NBA. And they're saying like, if this guy goes to the Thunder, it's just like a rigged league. And I'm like, if he's that good, why are the Thunder able to draft him like at 15 then? Right? Like, I don't get it. Like any other team then could just draft him if he's that good. Nothing against my man Yax. I won the national championship, right? But I looked because I thought, have the Thunder been winning the championship and I just haven't been like invested and I haven't noticed? Like, no, they won one. I think it was just one last year where we had Golden State go on that run where they were winning like 5 and even LeBron's Heat. No one will. I mean, people were complaining about LeBron super team, but no one was really complaining about, oh, this is like a horrible league, super unbalanced. It's been unbalanced since Michael Jordan played in the 90s. Right when Jordan was in the league, the Bulls were going to be in the finals. You knew it. You could bet on it. It's the same as like old pre-NIL college football. And I think that's what people want to go back to. It's kind of like a comfort food, I think, where, okay, well, we don't like the Thunder because they're not a historical team. I get that. Right? If they bring back the Seattle team, I don't know if that came through and it's been locked in or if that's still like speculation. It's kind of weird if the Thunder keep their history, right? Because it should go back to Seattle, and then they have enough with the Thunder where that should just be a clean break, and they should have to remove all the Seattle memorabilia and bring it back. I don't know if that's what they ended up doing with the Charlotte team. I mean, Charlotte didn't really win anything ever. I think Seattle had one championship in the 70s or something, where that should go back to Seattle, I think. If the team comes back there, I don't care if they moved. And people are going to, I mean, it depends if they come back with the same name. Because I know some baseball teams, right, they bounced around and the history stayed with them. But the difference between that is like when the Atlanta Braves came from Boston, there were like 3 Boston teams, right? So they didn't have to keep the Boston history there. Like the Red Sox are still there. They had their own team. Boston went, like the Braves went to Boston, to like Milwaukee. Like they were traveling all over. And each of those cities, like they have their own team now, right? So it's a little bit different because baseball, all the teams were located in the big cities at first, and then they spread out. At basketball, they just took the team away. And then they bring it back. That city should get their championships back. That's all I'm saying. That's my pre-show other sports talk. I would love to go see a Stanley Cup game in person. I hope it happens. I hope the Canes win it all because it felt like we've been close for a couple of years now. And I've been there. I've been to the outdoor games, right? So like it'd be nice to see them win it all down here because it's like our only pro team. Where some of these other cities, like you bring a championships like to Oklahoma City, what other sports do they have there? Let them win it. I don't want to see Los Angeles Lakers with like LeBron's super team winning it. No. Right? Some other cities like Philadelphia wandering around in the wild for these other sports. Like it's okay, but hey, at least the Eagles won. So it's not like they're constantly just losers everywhere. So I don't care too much on that side of things. But some of the narratives out there are just kind of insane. Because like I think the only Oklahoma City, like the reason people are giving him hate is because they're killing LeBron right now. And there are still a lot of guys out there that they want to see LeBron win. He's the only reason they've watched for 20 years or however long he's been in the league. And I get that. But him winning at the Lakers, like I still don't know what it would take for people to overturn their mindset that he would be better than Jordan. Because right now he just played longer. Didn't win enough championships, and they know he's running out of time. And Oklahoma City is just thumping them. The game, I mean, we're recording right now early, so Monday, we'll know. I mean, they could be eliminated before the game's out. Before the show comes out, they could be eliminated, and it could be Oklahoma City running back to see what that like championship is going to be. So it's almost like the same thing with like Sid. I saw a lot of people putting out hate after the Penguins got eliminated. And I know he's been great for a while. Ovechkin's also been great. I have no hate for Ovechkin. He didn't win as much as Sid did, right? But at least he got his cup. And I think it'll be like a different, you're going to have like some type of transition period when you lose 2 superstars when they eventually retire, unless they hang around forever, right?
Yeah.
So some of that stuff, it's just going to be a...
Then you look at a guy like Yammer Yager that was like playing almost in his 60s. So like it's doable.
But is he going to hang on that long?
Probably not, but he could.
Because
And the thing with Sid is he's not gonna go to Russia to play.
Well, see, the thing I was thinking about is I've seen a lot of people just drift away. And credit to soccer, I know everyone's been talking about it. I do see a lot of people getting more into soccer to the point where, like, I'm not going to fake it, right? Like, I don't watch Premier League or MLS or anything like that. But I know that kids talk about it. I've seen watch parties. Like, I've accidentally gone because a lot of their stuff's early. So, like, typically, like, oh, I like to go out like early before, like, you hit the rush on the weekends, go out to eat or something. Especially if you have, like, a family. Sometimes that's better. But if you go into, like, a watch party, then it gets kind of nuts. And you're like, yep, wrong time. Right? I've seen that happen down here in North Carolina. And I think some of the other sports, too, maybe it's more of, like, a social media thing. But from my perspective, we've seen the ratings go down. I talk about the TV ratings on here. The only sport ratings that seem like they're going up is NFL and sometimes college football and college basketball. And of course, like women's basketball, because like they were so low to begin with. But they're not on the same level. Like I'm not taking a shot at the women. I'm saying like NBA going down, it's not as popular. I think a lot of people that talk about basketball, they don't really watch the games. They just do it on social media. Because I every time I run into someone that's like, hey, like if I wear a Celtics shirt out, they're like, you watch the game last night? I'm like, of course I didn't, right? And like, did you? No, I caught the highlights. And like, I feel like 20 years ago, people were actually watching the games. Like, oh yeah, I remember like so-and-so play. It's almost like the same for baseball, where with the blackouts and everything that I complain about all the time, people are just not watching anymore. And then you're not getting into it. I saw that one. Remember the schedule reveal coming out? NFL, I think they pushed it back. It's coming out this week, though. The day after this show should come out, I think, the 14th. But one of the ones that they did, was it Tennessee did a schedule reveal like 2 years ago where they went on social media and they were asking people on the streets to like identify the logos. And no one knew them. And everyone was like laughing because like you're only following tennis like the Titans on social media if you know who they are. Most people don't know sports. Like they just don't. You'll know the teams that are close to you. They don't know the divisions. They don't know the players. Like it's sad that I can name off most of like the professional teams, right? And I wonder how much of this we're going to see a shift, because the main thing I want to talk about is there's been some, I don't even know if they're rumors at this point. There's been some discussions around some of the college universities out there that they're getting ready to cut more sports. And it's they tried to blame it on NIL, but at a certain point, you knew this was going to happen because the university was using Olympic sports and everything to help promote the university, right? You can attract high level athletes from smaller sports, and that will help get their names out in high schools. Like, hey, I'm running track at XYZ school. Really? Where's that? I never heard of it. And then everyone in the area knows, like someone from your school, hey, they're going to like Toledo or someone. Because like we all know like athletes from like our area, Hawkins, I think, went to Toledo. So like you have guys going to, and there are some other ones, I think someone went to UConn. So like you have guys going to the universities that aren't in your direct area. Before social media, that's really how you found out about them. Now, everyone is on social media, and some of these smaller schools, they're not going to exist. I complained about the NCAA basketball tournament expanding, and they put out their feelers. I think it crossed like 100% vote, like it passed. So that's going to happen. But they have like the pre-bracket now where they're like, it's going to penalize some of these teams that get in like under the radar, and they're going to play extra games because they're going to play either Tuesday and Wednesday, and then they're going to have to play Thursday and Friday, and then if they win, Saturday and Sunday. So you're not really even going to see these teams make the jump. You're just really hoping that you're getting some other big name teams that are on the bubble, because we've all seen it. Teams like Syracuse been on the bubble. Michigan's been on that bubble when Beilein was here a couple of years. Notre Dame has been in that play-in game. Like you have big universities that are right there playing in those play-in games, and there's probably tons of other basketball schools. I know Michigan State was in it. I'm pretty sure that all played in the play-in game. Now you're letting even more teams play in the play-in game, and you're getting their fans invested.
Well, and I think when you look at it, look at how many people over the last couple of years have opted out of like the NIT or the other like March tournament that wasn't affiliated with March Madness. Like when you have that option, I think a lot of these teams would rather, even if they have to run the gauntlet of the extra days, they would rather take their chances in the main tournament than to play in one of those other leagues, because you're not getting the exposure, you're not getting any of the major benefits. it's not doing as much for you.
And that's my point, because like you're saying that the exposure, it's the same with Olympic sports. People weren't watching them on the TV in the 80s either, right? They would watch the Olympics and see, hey, so-and-so went to college at whatever university. That was big time. Now, we don't even know the way they do the Olympics. It's like, yeah, they show all these like great impressions and all this like ratings and stuff, but you're not getting the same exposure. Like, you don't know. It doesn't matter that Michael Phelps is training at Michigan, right? Michigan didn't become like some swimming powerhouse overnight. I think they won one national championship after Phelps was there and made his bust, and that was it. Like, you're not getting the Olympic bump from some of these sports. Now, are some schools going to get rid of them? Probably. Some schools aren't even going to be able to support themselves with the way the funding and stuff is going. So you're going to be better off where Penn State has like a bazillion campuses across the state, and then everything's funneled in through the main campus, right? That's going to be the future, where almost every school is just going to have a ton of campuses and they're all funneled through, and that they're hoping that those donations come in. And I think all the other smaller schools are just going to go ahead and become club teams where you kind of play your own team. Because Penn State already has that, where they play a bunch of like, there's smaller conferences in like D2 or whatever in Pennsylvania, where those Penn State satellite campuses play the Pitt satellite campuses. And with NIL and everyone coming, I was talking to Matt pre-show, there's being pushes from states where they want even high schoolers to be able to get paid to play. Because the one beef that always comes up, we've been talking about it on the show for years now, especially when Matt was coaching, you have a separation of power with public high schools and private schools. So if NIL comes in, you already have private schools that are able to pick and choose their top athletes in the area and kind of create these super teams. And then, like if you follow recruiting like we do on this show, we talk about, oh, hey, XYZ, big programs get another guy from IMG Academy. How many people know high schools in other states if you have never been to that state, right? People should not be able to just name random high schools in Florida or Maryland, like the St. Francis Academy that Biff Poggi was at, right? People listen to the show, they might know these high schools because they're becoming recruiting powerhouses. And there are a bunch in Texas too that does it for football. So now you're at a point where you have money coming in. My prediction is not only are universities going to cut it, I'm surprised a lot of public schools just don't cut a bunch of sports. There's been a push for esports. I know down here at NC State, they're setting up I don't know if it's a separate arena. I think it is, where they're trying to bring in esports because it's not as expensive, right? You're not doing, even just in terms of risk, any athlete can get hurt, where they're going to want some type of coverage or insurance policy. Is someone really going to get hurt playing video games? Like, even at a young age, you're not like getting carpal tunnel really until you're like in your 40s. It'll be like the next CTE scandal. We'll be like old and we'll be hearing about how a bunch of esports guys are banding together trying to get their carpal tunnel fixed, bro. Right? We used to practice hours a day. I used to play video games. And then they're going to say like, well, were you doing that in your free time, or is that tied to like your scholarship or what? Because the colleges, they want to be, just visible. They want the marketing out there. They want social media. They know social media. The schools already have social media accounts for each sport. They know that some sports are just losing money. They're not getting the impression. Let's be real. People aren't going to a school because they saw their favorite Olympian went to that school. There's already been studies done. Winning the national championship in football does way more for academic reputation and just applications and everything than any other sport. Like Alabama and Clemson have been just boosted by their national championships in recent times. And that's why it's crazy that these other conferences are not pushing back harder from, like, I don't even want to say the NIL stuff because that's kind of a lost cause at this point. But from like the Big Ten, where you don't want the Big Ten that's already an academic powerhouse. They have their own like AAU thing that they have that all their universities are trying to get in. And you don't want them winning the national championships in football either. Because and then that's like the trifecta of, hey, we're going to be the best universities here. We have the richest alumni. We're winning football natties. You can come here and watch that. You can do like whatever research, like boom. And so a lot of these other small schools, it's not even going to be a jump from FCS or whatever it is to the FBS anymore. I think we're going to see teams jump back down or just get bought out. Like, I don't know how it's going to work for the private schools. Like, would Notre Dame just start eating up a bunch of these small Catholic schools? Like, is there a chance that, like, where I went undergrad, like, just get bought by, like, I know there's been rumors, like, it could be, like, Villanova or Temple or someone just merging. And then guess what? That's just whatever their satellite campus, because that's the only way you're going to be able to compete with the Penn State in Pennsylvania. Or just what? Penn State gets it? I mean, the St. Francis in Loretto is already dropping down, correct?
Yeah, they went from Division 1 to 3.
And the next division will be a merger with someone else, right? Because there's no other way they can drop down, because you're not getting the applicants playing D1 like you used to, because everyone sees the highlights from the tournament, even an expanded tournament. Where St. Francis, I think they made it a couple years ago. Maybe they didn't. I don't know, but I know St. Francis has been in random games, especially in football, where I saw them like in the early weeks. It's like, oh, St. Francis playing. In basketball, they're getting close to the NCAA tournament. Didn't matter. Doesn't matter anymore. So if it doesn't matter for those two sports, it's not going to matter for any of the other Olympic sports. And I just don't know how far these things are going to kind of fall. Where I really hope it's not, hey, we got only 30 universities that can support college football anymore. Here you are. It's like a minor NFL. I see people cheering for that. I don't want that, right? One of the fun, like the most fun things that I have, and I talk about it, is like traveling wearing my Michigan gear and running into some other like fan from another team and just talking about football, right? If you get rid of a like, hey, I'm traveling to like South Carolina, and then the Gamecocks have to like drop out or something, they're not going to be invested in football anymore, right? You're not going to get that same type of talk between fans. Michigan went in college basketball. Oh, guess what? All the small schools that like usually do kind of good at like basketball, like Gonzaga and those, if they have to drop or get merged or something, you're losing so many fans that they got to be careful, because sports aren't what they used to be. People just won't go. I don't know if because I go to a lot of concerts too, right? I don't know if you've seen, but there's been a lot of cancellations this year. They had like they've had the summer series tours that they used to do. It was like $20 or whatever. They bumped it up to 30. And they were very limited this year. Like, they were sold out. And then they expanded it because all the smaller concerts that usually people were going to, they weren't buying. People just aren't going to see these smaller acts anymore. And it's going to be the same exact thing that we see. And I see a lot of musicians now, they just play on YouTube. Or they'll hold like a live concert online, or like they'll just do it locally or whatever, and then record it and put it online. Because it's cheaper than paying like a whole, whatever. You could do it at a small club, 1 or 2 bouncers, pay for professional video recording, and sell it online, versus trying to put together like a mini tour to expand your reach. I think that's exactly what's going to happen with sports. Except people aren't going to watch like random colleges play on YouTube anymore, right? I mean, I'm not going to watch like a random tennis game. That's what someone told me, and what got me on this rant is I wear my Michigan basketball championship shirt. It was like, oh yeah, I wasn't invested in college basketball this year. I'm watching on the tennis, trying to get them more visibility. And I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? Like coming up to me and telling me that you don't recognize the Michigan basketball national championship, number one, means nothing to me, especially as like a random person. And then trying to like raise tennis to me is also just another odd thing to do that I just don't care. Like, okay, watch tennis. I know no one can name the last tennis national champion. I know that as a fact. I don't even know if that guy could have. Right? Have you ever gone to a tennis game? I know I've never been at a tennis match. Have you, Matt?
Never.
And I know it hurts him down here because I'm assuming the guy was probably a UNC or Duke fan, right? Because basketball's so big down here, and having Michigan win probably just ate at him. That he's like, you know what? I'll get this. I'll get under this guy's skin. I'll tell him that I didn't watch. And I'm just like, bro, don't know. No, I'm proudly wearing my shirt. I'll bust out my football national championship shirt to show you. I don't have a tennis one, buddy. I don't think. I don't know if we've ever won a tennis, but it doesn't matter to me. I've literally never watched tennis, so it doesn't matter. And I had something else to add into that. Now I'm drawing a blank, but is there anything else you want to add, or what do you think is going to happen? Because you're on the high school level right now.
So, I feel like with the lower levels, the private schools really have a heavy influence, because when you're looking at the enrollment numbers, all it takes is one or two really good athletes, and you can completely shift the dynamic. And then when you take it to basketball, where there's fewer players and like one really, really talented person can overrun stuff, I think you just look at the playoffs and there's so many private schools or, charter schools, people just creating these outside private things that they can recruit from anywhere. And all it takes, like in this area, to the one Bishop McCourt High School where Bo Bassett was wrestling, they were pulling people from like Wisconsin and like surrounding states to come there to wrestle. And it's like, it's hard. How do you compete if you're both at the same level and they're filling out their entire roster with people from all over the place, and we're at our school trying to fight to just have the bare minimum number of kids within our district to go out for varsity sport? Like, that's where I think that competitiveness hurts the public schools, because you're barely getting the numbers that you need, and then the kids are going to be discouraged because this other team's pulling from 3 different states.
And even the numbers, how have the numbers been? Because you've been around high school. Is it you seeing like the same amount of kids going out, less, more?
I feel like we're kind of consistent. Specifically at the high school I coach at right now, like, we're not losing kids to outside, but that's not to say that doesn't become more of a thing.
You're kind of further away though, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, I know that there's other, like, some of the bigger schools are out there that they kind of were developed from the onset of being able to pull from like the Pittsburgh area, the Philadelphia area, Harrisburg. And you have this giant network of schools, large high schools around, and you can kind of cherry pick some of those guys and really build a super team. I think that's where, on one hand, you have people saying, oh, it's good because they have school of choice and they can pick to go to a better school if their school isn't performing academically. But the downside of that is some of these schools are doing a really good job of keeping their enrollment numbers low intentionally, so that they don't have to play up.
How do they do that?
Well, if you're having stricter requirements or you're not accepting, if you know the cutoffs at, and I'm just going to arbitrarily say, if you know the cutoffs at 100, as you start getting into your nine, like you're not going to be actively recruiting to try to get to 125, 130. Because if you play up, then you got to play harder classification. It's easier to just keep those numbers down.
It probably is easier to just run things as a whole, having a smaller school, less utilities, less building type stuff.
Yeah. Now there's a proposal that passed in the Pennsylvania House where they're opening it up to separating the public schools from the private schools, and I think it's a step in the right direction. But the weird part to it is that even if it passes the Senate in June, which I think it likely will, all it does is it gives the PIAA, the Athletic Association, it gives them the ability to create separate playoff systems or classifications for privates versus public. Not to say that they're even going to do anything with it. They could still just be like, screw it, we're fine with the way it is, and just let it go.
Well, you brought up about ending like the NIT tournament and things like that, and I think that's probably going to happen. But do you think high schools are just going to stop sponsoring like certain sports and things like that? Because I know you brought up like wrestling, and I know even from like high school basketball, there are a lot of like charity tournaments around the holiday things. Do you see those going away, or are those still happening? Because I'm kind of disconnected, so I don't know.
They're still happening. There's still a lot of those style tournaments and things like that, and I think there's a little bit of history to them. So I wouldn't think that they would go away.
Because I'm looking right now at D3, because we talked about St. Francis. Right now they have 64 teams for baseball. But just, I don't know if this says, that might be one of the most sports. Basketball, I think, would be the other one. I don't know how many teams are in here, but it does talk about there's some other teams that have already started. Fontbonne University closed athletics. Eastern Nazarene closed athletics. They actually closed the entire school, it looks like. Wells College closed campus. Bern, Athen, I don't know where this is. They dropped athletics. And then Rosemont is merging with Villanova, which I brought up. Is like Villanova's looking to try to expand, because at some point, if you're one of the stronger brands, and that's more of like a Catholic university, you're going to be competing with like a Penn State and even Pitt and Penn. You're not going to get a lot of, like, you're eventually if you don't keep up with the facilities and getting like a richer alumni base just by expanding it, I don't know how you're going to survive. Even if eventually you just buy the college, merge it in, whatever, keep whatever you can, and then sell it off the rest of it. Because I think a lot of the other smaller colleges, and from the inside, this is what I've heard too. There are a lot of small colleges across Pennsylvania that provide services that are like definitely hard to set up right from scratch, like a nursing school, as an example. Because you can't just have all your nurses being trained in Philadelphia, right? So it's easier if you just buy out another small college, take their nursing facility or their medical stuff, keep it up, and then maybe sell off the rest of the land and kind of just have it as like a satellite medical type thing. Plus, I know that the AAU, they look for the medical things as part of like their research dollars. So it also helps from the academic side. And that's where it hurts schools like NC State that doesn't have a medical school. So when the rankings come out, and it's the same exact reason why Nebraska got dropped from the AAU, even though they're still in the Big Ten, they were dropped because they didn't have the new threshold for medical research, whatever, because they don't have a hospital. So I don't know how that's going to change, right? If you start having multiple satellite campuses and one of them has your hospital, does it count? Does it not count anymore? I don't know. That's what we're going to see. And a lot of these small schools that people like, I'm saying I don't know these schools. I'm sure there could be a possibility someone listening to the show, they've heard of them. I mean, I played college baseball. I don't remember any, like, I would guess I would know some schools maybe that other people don't know, but who knows? Right? I guess it just depends on what you're doing. Cause I know like my brother played basketball D2. He would know more universities that I wouldn't have played against or not even known traveling where they were. And if they go out of business, who knows? Right? I'm wondering if D3 will just kind of get cut out is my prediction. D3 will end. D2 will be the lower level. And then I wonder if the expanded basketball tournament just becomes the cutoff, right? You're either in the D1 level, and I don't know what they do. Like, I don't know what, like the football championship series versus the football bowl series. I hope that the top league doesn't split and they have 3 football levels left. That's my fear. But I don't know if a lot of the smaller schools that just can't compete and they're not getting the college or the NCAA tournament payoff anymore, do they just drop down to D2 and say, screw it? Like St. Francis did, right?
I think it's interesting that you look at, who was it? Kennesaw State was one that bumped up, and who was the other one that recently was at the lower level and just recently made the jump?
I'm going to look it up and see.
There was another school that I thought it was interesting because we're looking at funding these programs and trying to see what's like how schools are managing these athletic budgets. And you have these schools that have traditionally been pretty solid lower level FCS Division II type programs. And now they're trying to bump up a class to be competitive at the next level.
Well, that's where they joined the Conference USA. I wonder who else they brought up. Was it Delaware? No, the Missouri State. 2 more that jumped up.
Yeah, Southwest Missouri State.
So I think that's where we're going to see the cutoff, if we're being honest. And that's where I think, like for the college or the college football playoffs, I'm really shocked that these smaller conferences aren't trying to band together and throw their weight around with the NCAA and saying like, hey, one auto bid. Just one. If you're going to 24, give us one auto bid each, not one auto bid for all 5 of us, right? Because you're hurting yourself. And I don't know if the top dogs, like by the time they eventually realize it's going to be too late. Because the numbers of schools, and that's why I said like D3 is so small, they're going to die. They're either going to jump up, they're either going to build up and go to D2, or they're going to get bought out. That's the only option I see. I mean, some of these schools might continue, but like I said, if the NCAA isn't sponsoring sports, they'll just drop down to club level and they'll be like legitimate smaller private schools or whatever. Because like the ones you're mentioning, Kennesaw State, that's still a public university. Their enrollment's 50,000, dude. Looking at the Conference USA chart here. So
okay,
that's a giant school. Like that's bigger than like Louisiana Tech. That's public. They not only have 12,000. Jacksonville State is in here now. They have 9,000 to 10,000. Right. So Kennesaw State is now the second biggest other than FIU in the Conference USA. And to me, that's the deciding factor.
But I guess, I mean, I know the enrollment is a factor, but I think another thing that you got to take into consideration too is that if you're playing at Division II, you probably have Division II level facilities. Like it's not like you're going to have these over the top state of the art things, and now you bump up, and now you're trying to compete with, these higher level programs that already have the infrastructure available to attract the fans and the boosters and all that other stuff.
Well, that's where you got to look at. We talk about the endowments too. Like Kennesaw State already has $100 million endowment, which is going to help with some of that because that's your donor money coming in. Now, of course, they're competing. I'm surprised Delaware has $1.7 billion endowment, if this is right, because that's what Liberty's at right now, and Liberty's like new money, which is what scares everybody because it's not a public school, right? So having that type of money floating around, Delaware has enough where they'll probably survive, right? It's a state university. That's why I think some of these other ones like Wyoming and like some of these smaller states like the Dakotas, you might see new life because they're like the only game in town. And if you're going to survive and they start cutting some of these other smaller ones, I don't want to just start speculating. But you probably know from watching which ones are kind of not competing, and you can see the enrollments and things and how they're going to be going down. You're pretty much going to be left with a bunch of public universities, and it really just comes down to how many of them are going to be eaten up by the big dogs, and then how many are going to continue to be able to pay for sports. Because before you could load up your conference schedule on a bunch of teams like a 20-minute drive away. If all those teams get eaten up and they all get closed down, right? Because like even Pitt, in the middle of Pittsburgh, there's not a lot of land that's left. There are some other smaller universities and schools that Pitt could leverage and just buy out. And then you instantly have, like you're saying, there might be facilities that are kind of set up for a smaller university. But if you're using them as kind of like a part thing, or even if they can just don't like, hey, we want to sponsor like our business program or whatever. We have a new building. We're just going to take over from XYZ College in Pitt. We need some money for renovations. You could be the name on it. Boom. Right. Then you don't even have to gut some of the buildings if they're built solidly. Right. You can still keep some of like the charm of the older architecture for some of these schools. And then it just kind of gets bought in. And then like, heck, if they get bought out and the alums then get welcomed in, you're getting yourself a new alumni base right there to donate money to Pitt. Welcome aboard, brothers. Right? Come on in, throw that Penn State gear away. We know your old school didn't have football, but we do. You ever heard of the Pat signal? It's up right now. Get ready, recruiting season, baby. But I don't know. That's my off-season rant for this week. I see people trying to talk about, hey, how can we save these Olympic sports? Just don't. I mean, there are going to be trends. Remember, in like the early 1900s, everyone was like doing horse racing and boxing and stuff. That doesn't really happen anymore. You have like the Kentucky Derby people pay attention to. That's pretty much it. Unless you're like really gambling on horses, which is going to be crazy. But now the biggest thing I see out there is like pickleball. You see that where you are?
Yes.
It's blowing up. So to me, I think there's going to be like a shift where, hey, maybe we don't have tennis anymore. Maybe we just have pickleball, because if that's what people are interested in, that's what they're going to watch. And it's the same thing. My last thing is like the Live golf tournament thing that they try to do in Saudi Arabia, where they paid off all the athletes. And I told them, go get your money. And now living down here, knowing a lot of golf people, it's funny to me how they're like, take it so personal. They're like, they should not let him back in to the Masters or whatever. Why do you care? Right? Who cares? It's like a sports league. You take the most money. It would be like if the guys that played in the USFL back in like the 80s, like Herschel Walker, they're like, nope, you're done. You can't play anymore. Like, you know how ridiculous that sounds? If they weren't going to pay him at the Masters and the other league was going to pay him to try to it was a rival thing, but whatever. you won, right? Now you take them back, and whatever audience that the Live actually had and like build up internationally, that was the whole point of that thing, right? Was trying to build like international whatever golf following. They realized like, no one really cares about golf. I'm still surprised that it does numbers in the United States, to be honest, on TV, right? I want to see like the demographic. Are these like all old dudes watching it? Kind of like NASCAR, where they're like panicking because like, no one's watching this anymore. All our fans are dying. Matt, what do we do? So that's what I want to kind of see. How far does it go from there to that next level? But that's all I had for this week. Is there anything else you want to add in?
The only other thing that I saw is that the residual effect of teams shifting to the conference slate. Florida State and Georgia canceled their home and home. They're exploring options to make it a neutral site game, but I would be shocked if they end up picking that back up, because with the leagues going to the expanded conference slate, I don't think that they want to go that route. B, there's no, for either side, there's no reason for them to do it, because they're not going to get rewarded for playing a tougher schedule anyhow.
Well, see, that's the thing that I think a lot of these teams they're forgetting, right? The entire SEC is strong started because they were winning the national championship. If they only play themselves and they don't have any big time matchups, like I think, was it Ohio State and Alabama kept theirs? I'm pretty sure Michigan kept the Texas and Oklahoma matchups. I don't know what's scheduled after that, right? But if you're able to keep some big time matchups in the regular season, that might help with playoff seeding. Like I know it hurt. Michigan was kind of on the line last year. Thankfully, with all the Sharon stuff, they didn't have that over the head of like making a move, right? Like, oh, we're preparing for playoffs. Coach is getting arrested. But the Oklahoma loss was like the cutting factor where, hey, if Michigan doesn't play that game, it could be 10-2. They could have been in. I think they were 9-3 last year, right? So I think you're going to see that shift, and we're going to be hurting where you're not going to have the interconference, because I keep hearing it get compared to basketball. Basketball has inter-season tournaments. Like Michigan won that. What was that tournament where they pay players tournament or something? I just saw someone putting up the bracket for it, where they were like developing 2-day brackets where like half the teams are playing in one bracket and half teams are playing in the other for like the prize money. College football can't do that, right? You can't just say like, hey, you know what? Georgia, Florida State, your game's back on. Winner to get like $1 million for their NIL roster. Like that would be insane for one game, right?
Right.
So it's a little bit different. I hate the neutral site games. I do wonder if they're going to become the bowl games though, where.
But I think like where I would be really agitated is that if you were one of those people that threw a bunch of money toward the stadium renovations, and you're like, yeah, we want these bigger matchups, and then they're canceling. Like they had I think Notre Dame was one that canceled, and then they additionally had Georgia. Now it's like we're supposed to have these bigger matchups as part of our selling pitch, and now they're canceling everything.
Well, Notre Dame canceled on Michigan, and so anything that comes their way, that's on them. They canceled. Now they're considered weak, the schedule, right? And there's no way for them to really build it back up other than begging the SEC to help them out, because they cut all the tough Big Ten games. And now no one takes their conference, like their non-conference schedule seriously. They're not in the discussion to be like one of the top seeds in the playoffs, which maybe they don't want to be. I don't know. But my theory, and this could be totally wrong, you talk about NIT getting cut. I think NIT and CBI and those conference tournaments are getting replaced with the in-season tournament. I wouldn't be surprised if the same thing happened to the bowl games, where when everyone has a uniform schedule, This will be a lot easier to do. Last year's Michigan Texas bowl game, that becomes then a flex game for the following season. So instead of Michigan playing Oklahoma this year, or Florida State having to worry about Georgia backing out because they're scared of their conference schedule, right? They would already have that schedule kind of locked in based on the previous season performance. Where, okay, you're playing whatever you were picked for, that's going to be it. You could have playoff rematches. I don't know. My concern with the playoff rematches is I don't want it to become like a college football playoff where, hey, these 4 teams are getting in the playoffs every year. They're getting all the recruits. That's why teams won the 24 playoff.
But there's not a way to limit that because they're going that route, and then you're having between the Big Ten and the SEC right now, you're having the effects of that where they're not playing any of those other matchups, and it's just that echo chamber of, well, our conference is better, we deserve more people.
Well, that's why I think this is going to replace the bowl games, and I honestly think it's going to replace the conference championship games because the Big Ten and the SEC right now, they see the effects of these big interconference matchups. The one that was trending, I don't know if you saw it, the Duke-Michigan game was such a success last year in basketball, or this year in basketball, I guess it was in February, that they have 3 games scheduled. Fox is trying to fight over the rights for that game and take them from ESPN because of the Big Ten television contract. Imagine that. Basketball. Imagine that times 100 for college football. Because I'm saying the Big Ten and the SEC, they have bowl game agreements for however many matchups, 5 matchups, whatever, each year. No one's going to watch them anymore because they're getting replaced by the playoffs. People would still pay to watch them. The easiest way to do that would be almost like a Big Ten ACC basketball challenge. They tried to recreate it with the SEC or the ACC or the Big 12. It hasn't hit the same, right? That hasn't hit the same ratings or whatever. So now with football, you can have that flex scheduling. Hey, we have 9 conference games, 2 warm-ups. We have 1 flex week, September, whatever. We're going to bid it out. It's kind of already in place with Ohio State playing Alabama, Michigan playing Oregon, or Michigan playing Oklahoma or Texas, or Ohio State playing Texas or Oklahoma. You just have those in place. And then the team is going to be on the outside is like the Notre Dame, where if the SEC and the Big Ten come together and try to do a bowl game, conference championship game replacement, and they could even do it in the middle of the year. It doesn't have to be preseason, right? You could have this flex get prepped for the playoff matchup in the middle of October, whatever, call it crossover week or something. They could do whatever they want when they control the schedules. Because I don't know. I mean, people say oh, you're going to lose the early non-conference game. The opening weekend, Florida State's done a great job of playing that Monday night game. I think the ACC's been in that almost every year. Florida State's been in that a ton of times. Or they've been experimenting doing the Sunday night game. I think that was Florida State too. Maybe that was Miami though, where they're we're going to do a big time matchup. Imagine if that matchup was determined based on the previous season where you're not going to get a dud. Right? It's oh, Miami's playing or what the one year was ended up being Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech wasn't that good. But what if it was a 10-2 team and that was replaces the Capital One Bowl or whatever, where it's hey, the number 2 team from the SEC is playing the number 2 team from the Big Ten. Awesome. Let's get in here. I know that wasn't what and they're usually the number 4 team or whatever. But I think if you start seeing bigger crossover matchups like that, the bowl games will get phased out. Bigger money will still go to the big conferences, which is why I think it will happen. And then you really don't have to care about the auto bids from the smaller conferences. Let them have their one auto bid because you're killing the bowl games. And it'll become like the college basketball tournament. I'm pretty sure that's my prediction. Bowl games will disappear. They'll appease the smaller conferences by giving them one auto bid each. Even if they have to expand it to where they play in a play-in game like I've been promoting. And then I think you're going to see a crossover game, and it might just be between the SEC and the Big Ten, or it could be a scheduling agreement where the Big Ten also mixes in like the Big 12, because Fox might say, hey, we own some Big 12 games. Let's have one or two. And it's going to almost be just like bowl week, but it's going to happen during the regular season, like crossover matchup week. And then you're going to see teams that are kind of on the same level play each other, which will kind of help recruiting, but I don't know. It just comes down to, are the other conferences going to keep expanding? Because Big Ten's at like what, 20, 18? 18
Yeah.
still? I such a weird number. It's not going to last. SEC's at 16, I think. So that they're like in a good spot. They also don't really have anywhere else to go. So they're kind of stuck. If the Big Ten decides like, hey, we're going to go to 24, heck, if the Big Ten's like, we're going to go to 32, if you're the SEC, you have to be nervous. Because anyone you add at that point is probably going to be a downgrade. Like if the Big Ten just merges with the top half of the ACC like they did with the Pac-12, it immediately dwarfs anything the SEC can do. Immediately. In terms of academics, endowments, basically everything. That's my final thought for the show. So anything else you want to add?
No, that's it.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to our off-season TED Talk. Right? If you have anything you want us to talk about, let us know, and we will see you next week.